I must make the important distinction between the rebel and the revolutionary. One is in ineradicable opposition to the other. The revolutionary seeks an external political change. The origin of the term is the word revolve, literally meaning a turnover, as the revolution of a wheel. When the conditions under a given government are insufferable, some groups may seek to break down that government in the conviction that any new form cannot be but better. Many revolutions, however, simply substitute one kind of government for another, the second no better than the first, which leaves the individual citizen who has had to endure the inevitable anarchy between the two worse off than before. Revolution may do more harm than good. The rebel, on the other hand, seeks above all an internal change, a change in the attitudes, emotions and outlook of the people to whom he is devoted. He often seems to be temperamentally unable to accept success and the ease it brings. He kicks against the pricks, and when one frontier is conquered, he soon becomes ill at ease and pushes on to the new frontier. He is drawn to the unquiet minds and spirits, for he shares their everlasting inability to accept stultifying control. This week's opening quote comes from Rollo May. Welcome to Surviving the Matrix. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Maxwell Igan. It's a pleasure to be with you once again, and I will be your host for the next hour. Well, folks, stultifying control seems to be what the system tries to present to us every day and in every way and in everything that they do. And it would appear that that's what they've done ever since we were born. As soon as we were born and we were stamped and catalogued and named and numbered, it all kind of went downhill from there, well, as far as freedom goes anyway. But the people are standing up and the people are beginning to take that control back. And the wonderful result we saw at the Bentley gas well last week was a very good example of that. As happened on the show last week, exactly while I was recording the show, when it all went down and the license was cancelled for Metgasco to drill for coal seam gas at Bentley, it really did provide a great deal of empowerment to the people on the ground there. And it's been very interesting to see what has happened since then, and the little dances and sidesteps and rhetoric that we're hearing from all these stupid politicians around the area that are trying to take credit for standing up against the gas well when none of them actually did a damn thing. All of them were supporting it. None of them said anything while it was all going ahead. And now they're attempting to shift blame. And they're attempting to say we're going to ban Metgasco. We're going to cancel their license altogether. We're going to stop this terrible company because of all the corruption and all of this stuff. And they're attempting to shift the blame onto the gas companies rather than facing up to the fact that they are the ones that are responsible for allowing this toxic industry into the country in the first place. And very noticeably, folks, just a week before the license was cancelled at Bentley, there was a letter that was sent to virtually every politician in New South Wales and the federal government and state government asking for the government to provide the people with the results of the studies that the government had done showing conclusively that this industry doesn't damage the water table, and if these studies haven't been done and the government cannot produce the results for the people, then the government needs to show cause why we should not rally the people to express a loss of confidence in the Australian government and take the necessary steps to have them dismissed. That was the body of the letter that was sent to government 6 days before the licence was cancelled, and it's very, very interesting to see the amount of rhetoric they are bringing forth in the media now, attempting to shift blame onto the gas companies that are doing the drilling, when the real problem is the government. And so as a follow-up, it's nice to know that the people are contacting the government now. I've recently spoken to them, and they're saying, yes, it's very good that you've cancelled the licence, but we still require you to provide us with the results of the studies or show cause why you shouldn't be dismissed. And so it really is an issue that I think will turn things around. It is an issue that has the ability to bring down the Australian government, because we don't need a ban on Metgasco. We need a ban on coal seam gas mining in this country. This toxic, pollutive, destructive industry needs to be banned altogether, and we do not wish to do any of it in this country. We will not destroy the country in order to extract gas. Because, as I've said so often recently, folks, Australia is a spring-fed nation. And if we pollute the groundwater in this country, then we render this country uninhabitable. And if we extract coal seam gas from this country, that is exactly what we will do. And so now the fight needs to be taken to the wire, folks, and we need to keep pushing until these criminals are removed from office and this toxic industry is banned altogether. So yes, it has been good to win a small battle at Bentley, but the fight is far from over yet, and don't let the politicians distract you with rhetoric and attempt to shift blame onto the gas companies when the real criminals in this matter are the government themselves. No, government is such an unnecessary evil. It really is. It's something that we don't need. It's something that ruins everything it touches. It's something that controls every aspect of our lives, and we really don't need it, folks. It's time we stepped above the nanny state that is attempting to wrap us ever more tightly in the toxic cotton wool that it produces. And that's really what it is, folks. It's like toxic cotton wool. All of their laws, well, they call them laws, but really they're only legislation. It's just gotten beyond a joke, folks, and it really is time for the people to wake up to themselves. I mean, I don't know, I've been doing shows about this for years, and it really is time for the people to stand up and pay attention. You know, there's so many better ways we could be doing things. But people are just kept too distracted. People are kept too distracted to notice. That's why things get so difficult all the time. Things get more and more difficult. That's why the prices keep going up. Why people are forced to run ever faster on the treadmill, just so they don't notice and so they don't ever have a chance to actually take a breath and look around them. But I think the governments all around the world, and the government in Australia especially, are pushing things a little bit too hard now. They've got their confidence up and they really believe they've already won, and so they're pushing things so hard that it's now becoming glaringly apparent and right in the face of everybody. And the stuff that this government has done is amazing. I mean, I knew when Tony Abbott took office that he would be the worst thing that ever happened to this country, because I know he's a blatant sociopath and he is not going to hold back on the agenda at all. In fact, he will escalate the agenda because he desperately wants to appear worthy and lick the butt of his corporate controllers. He really wants to be a good little puppet so that he's rewarded when he leaves office, and so I knew he would escalate the agenda. I mean, even the fact that he was John Howard's lackey, he was part of the Howard government, and so of course he wants to come in and finish the corrupt run that John Howard had. I mean, he learnt corruption from the master himself, little maggot Magoo. So it's no surprise at what he is doing to this country. He probably desperately wants to appear as even more of a sociopath than Magoo was, because he wants to achieve the status that Magoo has with the corporate masters, who all no doubt view him as a very functional little puppet, and he's probably living in the lap of luxury with all the millions of dollars that he stole from the Australian people and corporate payouts that he was given. And so, of course, Tony Abbott is going to want to emulate this treasonous little cretin. But what he has done is really putting things in the face of the Australian people. And the Australian people are beginning to realise that we have a very brutal and very heartless psychopath running this country. He's a man with absolutely no empathy, and a man who does not have anybody's best interest at heart except his own and the corporate masters and international banksters he supports. And it's true, folks. He has no scruples, he has no morals, he has no empathy. He's a complete and utter sociopath. That's just what he is. And the government that he has constructed is most certainly displaying that type of mentality. The Abbott government is showing brutal disregard for the people of this country, and it's a government based on barefaced lies. As I said, he's even saying that Australia is a poor nation. He's not even mentioning the oil that's just been found. I mean, the man is such a liar that it's incredible. I mean, one may wonder how he's even able to sleep at night, but of course for a man with no empathy and a heart as black as coal, of course sleeping becomes very simple. I mean, even the new budget that he has delivered, folks, I mean, this is a drastic budget designed to make the poor poorer and the rich richer. Of course, he is presenting the budget on the back of the barefaced lie that he is presenting that Australia is a very poor nation. He is, of course, not mentioning the 233 billion barrels of oil that we've just discovered in Cooper Pedy, making Australia, in fact, one of the richest nations on earth. So what we've really got with Tony Abbott's budget is simply a barefaced lie on the back of another barefaced lie delivered to the Australian people by a psychopathic cretin in the latest attempt of the Australian government to steal everything it can from the people and impoverish as much of the population as they are able to, while selling the country out from underneath them. That seems to be the general crux of the new Australian budget, delivered with a smile to the Australian people by the treasonous, treacherous, seditious, lying, sociopathic, psychopathic cretin of a Prime Minister, Tony Abbott. And of course every word I use to describe Mr. Abbott can also be readily applied to every member of his political party and to every member of the opposition. And that is unfortunately the state that we are in this country. So that is why we need to express a loss of confidence in these sociopathic cretins to do anything sane and dismiss the barrel of monkeys, lunatics, fools, cretins, criminals and corporate whores, which is the current Australian government. But I digress. I am getting tired of this government though, folks. I'm getting tired of the situation mankind finds itself in. I'm also getting tired of battling to try to make a difference. I really am. I'm getting tired of the battle. I'm getting tired of battling against other people in the so-called truth movement as well, who mainly seem to be about creating division. I'm really sick of being attacked and bad-mouthed by other people in the truth movement who've never met me. Many people seem to think that this is a battle of egos or it's some type of contest, and that by attacking other researchers or presenters they can gain notoriety for themselves or something. I don't know what it is, but I'm really beginning to tire of it. And so with that in mind, I am considering that it may possibly be time to wind the program down and maybe make this the last season that people hear Surviving the Matrix on air. I'm thinking that I've put enough information out there now for people to have and to continue going. I mean, I feel like I'm beating my head against a wall to some extent. There is an enormous amount of information out there now. Unfortunately, many people aren't looking at things clear enough. Too many people are trying to establish their personal freedom rather than freedom for the world. I mean, personal freedom doesn't work, folks. You can free yourself from the system and you can walk around going, yeah, I'm a free man, I'm good, I'm this, I'm that, I can take on the court, I can do this. But unless you're going to address the corruption of this system, then you can be free all you like, but the world is being destroyed around you via the mechanism of things such as coal seam gas, Fukushima, the wars, the depopulation, Monsanto, geoengineering, all sorts of stuff that's going on. And so you can be a free man if you want, but you won't be free for very long, because if you do ignore the world around you, then you won't have a world to be free in. That is the problem. And many people aren't seeing that. Many people don't realize how all-encompassing the system of control is and how much of a hold it has over human consciousness. It's far more than just the corporate commercial system, the Vatican system, the system of debt slavery that we're in, the paper-based reality. It's far, far more than that, folks. Freeing yourself from that is simply just one aspect of it. And even if you do free yourself from that paper-based reality, well, it's not going to achieve anything, because the world is still spiralling downward very, very quickly, simply due to people's unwillingness to pay attention and to get involved in the world at large. Get involved in their local community, start making things happen on the ground where they live. People are too caught up in their own little personal bubbles of trying to establish their personal freedom rather than realizing that while there is one person unfree, then the whole world is unfree. That's just the way it is. And though there are many people waking up, the world is most certainly becoming more and more unfree as the days go on. It is here in Australia. Australia is almost a police state now. Western Australia is a virtual police state. I think it's pretty bad in Victoria as well. And we're seeing a huge escalation in police here in Queensland as well. I mean, there's these thugs all over the place, folks. I saw a truck pulled over on the side of the road one day, and there were 8 police cars pulled up with the truck. This is for one truck driver, folks. 8 cop cars. Unbelievable. There was a roadside breath test that I drove through the other day. There was something like 16 police officers at this roadside RBT, which just shows the level that they are taking things to, folks. They're putting as many police as they can in your face just so you get used to seeing lots and lots of police everywhere. And that's just the way it's going. And it's going to continue until people start exercising their rights. But again, folks, I mean, it all comes down to respect, doesn't it? It all comes down to having an empowered community, and that's the biggest problem. And that's why I've addressed it so many times on the show. The need to have an empowered community, have a respectful community. And that's something we don't have. And even with the alternate research movement or the truth movement or whatever you want to call it, it's just a lot of bickering, people with their own ideas, bickering and saying their way is the only way, when really what it's all about is free human expression. I mean, everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and everybody has something of value to bring to the table. But many people just get locked into tunnel vision. They get locked into the concept that it's their way or the highway, and that's all they will support. And that's the problem with the alternate research movement. Everybody is caught up in their own ego and too interested in supporting their own agenda. And it would seem that the alternate research movement has been greatly infiltrated by people who are most likely government plants or CIA or whatever, who are in there simply to stir the pot and simply to create division and spread disinformation. And there certainly is a great deal of it on the airwaves today. And so the global agenda just continues. The New World Order slowly brings itself into place because people remain divided and people look for a remedy within the parameters of the system. I really wish the people would just step back and step away from it. I really do. I really wish people would just put down all this stuff and start again now. Start everything now. Forget about anything that happened in the past and just start everything now. Put down all your stuff. Stop looking for remedy within the parameters of the system. Realize that the people who are controlling the world are just people, and take the moral high ground in all that you do. You don't have to obey any legislation which interferes with your moral compass. And if there's legislation that's been put in place by government which does interfere with your moral compass, then you need to challenge it. And challenge the cretins and criminals who've put it in place, because that's all they are, folks, are cretins and criminals. They're just people, just like you, just like me, just like everybody else. And we can't allow these criminal scumbags to destroy the world because they wrote their bullshit on pieces of paper. It's just absurd. The victory that we've just seen at the Bentley gas well is a great example of this, folks. It's a great example of what we can do if we choose to stand up and put our minds to it and put our hearts into the task. And it also shows what happens when you address things from the right perspective. I mean, quite literally, as I mentioned earlier, the sidestepping and sign dance that we've seen from the government in an attempt to shift blame onto the gas companies has been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's worth buying popcorn just to sit down and watch it like a theatre production, because that's really what it is. It's just a theatrical display. But it's been a really empowering thing. And we've got to realize the simplicity of this, folks. We've got to realize how simple it would be to change things if we would just respect each other. And that's why I've been getting so sick of being attacked by the people in the alternate research community. These people want division. That's all they want is division. That's why they attack other researchers. There's this guy in Australia who's got an incredible website of disinformation that claims a love for life. And when you look at the site, you find it's got disinformation and hatred about everybody you can imagine on the website. The website should more appropriately be called Hatred for All. And this is the sort of stuff that is being presented to the world, folks, and massive amounts of disinformation. It's absolutely incredible what is out there when the answer to all of our problems is so simple and the remedy could be achieved and put into place so quickly and in one single day that it just defies analysis that all of this disinformation is out there. And it defies logic that people would buy into it. And it's also quite unbelievable that anyone who is actually a researcher or an alternate researcher or someone who considers themselves to be wanting to help the world would be spending their time attacking other people all the time. But that's the way they do it, folks. That's the way counterintelligence works. You'll find all of these sites have just enough truth to get you sucked in, and then they lead you down rabbit holes of massive disinformation and pit you against all the other people that they possibly can, so that the ultimate result of the site is division, hatred, misinformation, distrust, and disunity. And there are many, many sites like this, folks. Look at Dallas Goldbug's site. That's a great comedy site, folks. If you ever want a good laugh, go to wellaware1.com and find pictures of people who look nothing like each other, who are all claimed to be the same people. The person running the site claims that everybody in the world is actually all part of one family. There's only one family running the world, folks. There's no governments. There's none of this. There's no wars. There probably isn't even any other countries. It's all just one family and a smokescreen movie show. That's what that site promotes. It's absolutely incredible, folks. And there are so many counterintelligence and disinformation sites out there now that it becomes almost impossible to separate the wheat from the chaff. And that's why people need to look within their own hearts, because really, folks, that's where all the answers are. That's where all the remedy is. That's where all the solutions to our problems lie. They all lie within your own heart. And by changing your perspective of reality and changing your perspective of who and what you are and how you interact with the people around you, you can change the world. And if we all did it, we could change the world in a single day. The question is, how bad is it going to have to get before people realize this and before people actually want to do it? But like I said, folks, I've been growing rather tired over the last year. And I've been doing this for a long time now, and I'm thinking that my run is pretty well over. I can't see that I have anything more to say. I really don't know what else I can tell you on these shows. And I wonder if by continuing the shows, I'm simply watering down the message. And perhaps the best thing I could do would be just to leave the information out there now for people to consume if they want to, and hopefully that will make a difference. I don't know whether I'm making a difference by staying on the air any longer. I just don't know whether I should be doing it or not. I just don't know anymore. And as I said, I am getting tired of the attacks. I really am. I live by myself in a shed on a friend's property, and I do have people that I see each day, but it's a pretty solitary lifestyle that I live, and I've been fighting this battle on my own for a very long time now, and I am growing rather weary, and the personal attacks from people whom I believed were on the same side as me are beginning to wear me down. I'm not invincible, folks. I have a thick skin, but I'm not invincible, and things do eventually take their toll. I mean, I'm prepared to keep going if I am making a difference, but sometimes I just really wonder if I am. You know, I go out there on the street and I see the state of the world and I see the mentality of the people within our society. You know, it's like a cat fight out there. Everybody's just squabbling. Everyone's profiteering from each other. Everyone's climbing over each other to get to the top of the pile and running as fast as they can on the treadmill. There's so many people out there that are still asleep and still locked into the matrix. There's so many people that won't wake up until the machine is right there on their front doorstep. And there's many people that won't even wake up then. There's many people that will just keep continuing, and they'll keep going, and they'll go work the mines to support their families if they have to, because they totally believe the system is real. And those who are awake, or half awake at least, often spend their time in competition with each other rather than in cooperation with each other. And it just makes me wonder. It makes me wonder whether I am making a difference and whether it's actually worthwhile me continuing with what I do. Hopefully I've already provided some sort of a safety net for those who find out they're living in a matrix and begin to free fall. Hopefully they will discover the work on thecrowhouse.com and they'll see that there is opportunity in the knowledge that's coming to the foreground. There is opportunity in all the problems that we face. But as I said, folks, I just don't know whether I should continue to do the shows or whether I should just go and do something else now. I mean, I do think we've come a long way since I started on the shows, a long way since 2008. I think we've made a massive amount of progress, really, in the last 6 years. Of course, the New World Order and the control system has also made a massive amount of progress. But information has spread out to people, and there are a great many people in the world now who are far more aware than they were when I started doing this. And so that's a good sign. And it is nice to know that I have made a difference to many people. I have received a lot of positive emails from people. But I just wonder, folks, I mean, I've said it all so many times now, and I wonder if by coming on the air I'm not simply going through the motions and watering down the information when really I should just be leaving things the way they are. Decisions. I guess I'll just have to see how things pan out over the next few weeks and make my decision when the time is right. It truly is going to be wonderful when humanity decides to stand up and break the chains of this system. It really is going to be a wonderful time in history when human freedom actually comes into being. We've had small modicums of things that have appeared like freedom at certain times during our history, but it hasn't really been freedom at all. It's always been subservience with a different face. And it's going to be wonderful to see people actually stand up and claim their freedom when they decide to do it. And there is a growing movement of people that are doing this. There is a growing movement of people that are realizing they live in a slavery system, they live in a system of debt slavery, and who are standing up against the system and rebelling against the system. We've seen revolutions or rebellions in virtually every country on earth, and we're seeing the governments themselves push the people towards these rebellions. We're seeing it here in Australia. People in Australia are actually calling for revolution because of the sheer brutality and corruption of the Abbott government. I mean, we've never seen a government as corrupt as the Abbott government. We've never seen a government with such brutal disregard for the people of the country as the Abbott government. And so, in a way, this is a very, very good thing because it shows the people, it puts it in their face, and it shows them that the world is corrupt and that we can do things differently if we choose to. And it shows the power that we've got. I mean, Tony Abbott is such a pitiful little cretin that he's just no threat to you. You don't feel threatened by this man at all. He's the sort of man that you just feel stupid obeying anything he says because he's such a moron. It's like being given instructions by Gumby, being given instructions by the town fool. And so as soon as he opens his mouth, you just want to do the opposite thing. That's just the reaction that he has with people. And this is a good thing. It's kind of good to have someone so demented and sociopathic as Tony Abbott in place as Prime Minister because it shows to the Australian people just what a farcical joke this entire political system is and how much they're being ripped off and stolen from by the Crown Corporation. And that's really a good thing. But the question is how much are people going to take? When are the people going to stand up and actually do something about it? And what are they going to do about it when they decide to do something? I mean, what are we going to do? Just vote one party out and vote the other party back in again? I mean, we've been doing this for 200 years, folks. I think people should have realised by now that it's simply theatre for the masses, because nothing ever changes regardless of who you vote in. So really, if you're going to vote in the next election, I would suggest don't vote for any of the major parties at all. And really what we should do is not vote at all. I believe that what we should do is boycott the next election pending suitable candidates. I really think that's what we should do. I think that if you vote in the Australian elections, all you're doing is supporting organised crime, and it's about time we made a stand against that type of activity. And we're getting to a point in time when we can do this, folks, because the system is being laid so bare now. The corruption in Australia is being laid so bare. This victory with the gas well at Bentley has really shown people that we can make a difference, and it's shown people just how corrupt this system is and how much danger this country is actually in from these politicians. You know, I said a couple of years ago that I believe coal seam gas could be something that will unite the country, and it could be a pivotal thing that will bring down the Australian government, and I still believe that we can do this, folks, because once this issue is pushed and the unwillingness of the Australian government to actually preserve this country, protect its water table and stand up for the people becomes apparent to the people of the country, then we will have no choice but to dismiss this government, and we're going to have the whole nation want to do it. We're going to have even the most asleep and most closed-minded people are going to want to stand up and dismiss this government. They're going to want to hold them accountable for their actions. And once we've got their attention with this coal seam gas industry and we do dismiss this government, if we play our cards right, we can also present the entire slavery system laid bare for all to see. And we can do it for a whole country. And that would be a really good thing. You know, we could actually save the entire country of Australia via the mechanism of contesting the coal seam gas industry. We have the potential to do that. And if we did that and we turned things around in this country, we could quite literally create a shockwave that went around the entire world. That's what we could do. And that's what we have the potential of initiating if we seize the opportunity that this victory at Bentley has given us, and seize the opportunity that the letter that was sent prior to the victory has given us as well. Because we need to continue this stance. We need the politicians to answer the questions that were given to them in the letter that was delivered to them by the Bentley blockade. And we really could bring down the entire system with this issue, folks. So let's all seize the opportunity to really, really push this. And don't fall off the train now, folks, because we're really close with this issue. So if you're out there and you're working to contest the coal seam gas industry, really do stay on the case and really keep pushing, because we are very, very close to making a real difference by contesting this industry in the correct manner. And the beauty of it is that this action is in the hands of the people now. It's already been started. The ball is already rolling. It isn't even necessary for me to continue doing shows to ensure that ball keeps rolling, because it's now in play. And all that's necessary to keep it going is action from the people on the ground, and hopefully the willingness of more and more people to jump on board and get involved. Now's the time in history that we can make a change, folks. All we have to do is participate. And really what we're all participating in, ladies and gentlemen, is the further evolution of human consciousness. That's really what it is, because that's what evolves, is consciousness. Even when you look back at history and you look at the way new species were constantly introduced into the geological record and where these species actually came from, it's very difficult to trace the path of what is supposed to be Darwinian evolution. I mean, sure, we can look back through the layers of rock and sediment and we can see where there were crustaceans and how things basically became more and more complex. But was this the result of species actually evolving into other species? Or was it simply the product of spontaneous creation by consciousness, once it had understood that life form more and it had got to a state of consciousness where that life form had ceased to serve consciousness, did consciousness then simply spontaneously create a new species? Is that how man came into being? Because we didn't evolve from apes, folks. I'll tell you right now. If you look at the evidence to support evolution and the evidence to question it, then the questions far outweigh the support. I mean, even when you look at apes, folks, we are so different to apes. It's amazing that they could even consider that we came from apes, because we didn't. For a start, apes have 2 more chromosomes than we do. They are about 5 to 10 times stronger than we are. They have hair all over their bodies except for on their heads and chest. We are kind of the opposite of that. And plus, our hair continues to grow. Apes' hair does not continue to grow. Our nails and fingernails and toenails continue to grow. Apes do not continue to grow. And they try to trap you into the theory that we come from apes, because they say, look, there's only 1% difference in the genetic structure of an ape and a human being. But what they don't tell you is that a human being has a DNA that contains around about 100 billion base pairs. And so therefore a 1% difference is around about 100 million base pairs. And 100 billion base pairs is in fact a huge genetic difference, ladies and gentlemen. And it's the same with other species. We can see that there are chemicals and there are chromosomes and there are genes that are common in many species, but it's very difficult to see how any species could turn into a completely different life form. And besides, if human beings did evolve from apes, then why are there still apes on the earth? And because there are still apes on the earth and there are human beings on the earth, if it was a case of evolution, why are there no transitional species? And of course the reason is because we didn't come from apes. And I would suggest that what happens is that consciousness simply spontaneously creates new species as it needs them. That's the thing, you see, folks. It's actually very interesting when you look at it, because, like I said, you do find an evolutionary path in as much as when you look back through the geological records, species do become more complex as we draw closer to the present. But yet we can find no transitions between these species from one species to another. And so it would appear that what evolves is not the physical form, but consciousness itself. Because everything comes from consciousness. Everything comes from energy, the energy of the universe, the life force, the prana, whatever you want to call it, the energy, the stuff that makes up reality. This is where all life comes from, and it is conscious. Of course it's conscious. It has to be for reality to work. And when you understand things such as the measurement problem, and you understand the nature of atoms, and you understand that there is no real matter, you understand how spells work, you understand how the left brain education affects you, and how that everything is a realm of possibility, and that the only thing that is impossible is that which you believe is impossible. And you think about that, and then you consider the fact that your consciousness is not local to your body, it exists in the field around you, and it becomes very, very conceivable that consciousness simply creates a new expression of creation when it needs one. And I would suggest that that is what evolves. It is consciousness. And that's what we are seeing now with all of this exposing of the system that we've seen over the last few years. All the freeman stuff, all the birth certificate stuff, all the slavery system that's been presented to us. It shows us what we are in. It shows us what we are trapped in. And for the first time in history, we actually have the concept of freedom in our minds. The problem is that most people don't really know what to do with real freedom because they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it feels like, because it's something that if it comes into being, it will be an entirely new chapter in the human experience, because it's something that we have never experienced before. Not in recorded history anyway, not in any type of culture that's been handed down to us. I can't find it anywhere in history that mankind was actually free. Perhaps we were back when we were cave dwellers, but we didn't really have the means by which to enjoy that freedom at the time. I would suggest that the freedom that we are heading towards is going to be something vastly different to the hunter and gatherer type of freedom that we may have experienced in lesser times in history. And I think we are heading towards freedom, folks. I don't think we are heading towards slavery. I think there are people who want us to be heading towards slavery, but I think the mechanism is being laid so bare now that I really don't think there's going to be any holding human consciousness back. And I certainly believe that mankind is heading for far, far greater things than global slavery, regardless of what the powers that believe they be would like to bring into being. Of course, we're not free yet, and we do have quite a long way to go, and we do have the wall of stupidity that is the modern police forces that stand between us and true freedom. But we are getting there, ladies and gentlemen. There are more and more people discovering their true power all the time, and that's a very good thing. The trick is exercising that power, because very often when people discover their own power, they often remain too frightened to ever really put it into practice. They know it's there, it's kind of in their peripheral vision, and they know they really could be free if they wanted, and they're definitely going to stand up and do it one day, just not quite now. And there's a lot of people who actually think that way, which is a shame, because the power is there, and you do have a lot of power. The power of your flesh is an incredible thing. I've done whole shows where I've spoken to you about the power of you. Just knowing that you are a living, sentient life form is an enormously empowering thing, and you should choose to use your power, ladies and gentlemen. You really should. Don't succumb to authority. Question the people who believe they have a right of ownership over you, and you'll soon find that once you begin to stand in your own power, it becomes very infectious, and you wish to do it all the time. And that's when we really start to make a difference, folks. You know, the free man stuff and all the individual empowerment that people are looking for, it's good if you can use it and not just know it, but actually use it and share it with the people around you. But you've got to stand as a community, you really do. Don't attempt to confront authority on the side of the road, because there's usually 2 or 3 of them and there's one of you, and you get into a lot of trouble because they just like to tase and beat up people. That's the way modern cops are. But maybe do workshops and help other people come into the knowledge of themselves, and do what you can to be a shining light in your community, and that's really how we'll make a difference in the world. And the real trick through it all, folks, is to find your own path. Find your own path through all this. Don't go down rabbit holes. Don't buy into all the disinformation that's out there. Don't buy into all the hate-mongering and divisionists. Find your own path. Find your heart and apply that to your path. That's how we do things, folks. That's how we change things. And that might sound very esoteric and like it means nothing. But it does. If you can really think about what I just said, it really does make a difference if you can do that. That's how I've made a difference in my life, folks. It just took me a long time to do it, but eventually I did find my path, and I'm walking my path, and it's a good thing, and my life has changed since I've been on my path. You know, we often avoid the path that we're supposed to be walking. Very often we know what it is in the back of our minds, but we just avoid it. We just do other things because we're either indulgent or we're scared, or sometimes we just don't care. But really, we've laid a path out for ourselves. It is there, it is good, it is true, and if we choose to step onto our proper path, you'll find that your life just unfolds the way it should. That's the way my life has been. That's why I'm thinking now that it's time to change my path. It's time to stop doing these shows and to do something else, because I'm just getting the signs that perhaps that's what I'm supposed to do. I can't see why else these attacks would be coming. Perhaps it's to shift me into a different direction, to make me feel uncomfortable so that I do shift into a different direction. I'm just feeling restless. I've been on this path, and I think I've achieved a lot of what I hoped to achieve on this path. What I really did hope to achieve was freedom for the world. But I've realized now that I can't do that. I can't free the world. All I can do is put information out there and hopefully point people in the right direction to self-discovery, because that's what will change the world. But it wasn't until I started walking my path that my life began to unfold the way it should. And I think it's very important for people to realize that this applies to everybody. And if you can walk your path, if you can discover the art of your life and apply that to your life, and apply your heart to what you do. Follow your heart in all that you do, folks. If your heart is not in what you're doing, then don't do it. And don't worry that because you're supporting this economic system and you're stuck in this economic rut, that if you leave what you're doing and you start following your heart, suddenly you're going to be broke. Because if it is your path, then things will work out. I recently spoke at a business seminar in Sydney, and one of the men at the seminar was a man who used to have a $200 million company, and one day he just decided that he didn't want to do it anymore. So he dissolved the company, sold all of its assets in 2 weeks, gave his house to his ex-wife, gave all his money away, and hitchhiked around the world. When I spoke to him, he had about $5,000 in the bank, and he said he'd never been happier in his whole life. And that was for a man who was running a $200 million company and living in a mansion. Because what happened is he got to a stage in his life when he realized that all of that stuff that was external to himself was simply distracting him from himself, and that himself had been the one thing that he had avoided for his whole life. It had been the one thing he'd never discovered, the one thing he'd never experienced in his life. It was himself, because he was so caught up in all of the external trappings that he believed made himself. But they didn't. All they did was distract him from who he was and distract him from the path that he should have been on. Because the path that we all should be on is a path of self-discovery. That's what we're here for, folks. We're here to discover ourselves and to experience ourselves to the fullest of our potential. That's what the experience is all about. And that's why this is such a significant time in history, because this is the time in history when we woke up to the fact that we can actually do this. If we apply ourselves to ourselves, we can change ourselves and we can change the world. And that's what's happening right now. And you might say, well, how do I discover my path? How do I know what is my path? Which path do I choose? Well, the path you choose, folks, is the path with a heart. You follow the path that your heart tells you to follow. Listen to your intuition, listen to your heart, listen to your inner voice, listen to yourself. Because reality is talking to you all the time. You are involved in a conversation. It's just that many of us have forgotten how to listen. But once you learn the art of listening to your heart and listening to reality, then your world will change. And don't let all the information about the world get you down too much. Don't let the global situation get you down too much. Don't let the personal attacks from others get you down too much. And I really need to listen to those words as well, because they've been affecting me lately. They really have. And that's what I mean, folks. It affects us all. Even if we have thick skin, we all need support sometimes, and we can all feel sad sometimes. We can all feel sorry for ourselves. We can all feel like the world is against us. We can all feel like no matter how hard we try, nothing ever changes, and we can all feel that our existence is futile. But it's not true, it's not true, those things that we think about ourselves. Nothing is futile. Nothing that you do is futile. Nothing that I do is futile. There is a way through all this, and it's easy to take on the words of others and apply them to our own lives, and take on the reality that other people offer you of yourself. People insult you, and you choose to take that reality on as your own. This is what's been happening to me lately. I've received so many insults from people, and just little things, and you never know, folks. When you say things to people, you say something bad or something nasty to people, you don't know what's going on in their life, and that may be the one word that just pushes them over the edge. You just don't know. And that's why you should try to avoid confrontation with people and try to avoid attacking people. I know it can be hard when people attack you. You want to attack them back. I do sometimes. I want to attack them back. I get mad. I get disappointed. I get despondent. I get depressed. It does happen. It happens to all of us. And I've got to tell you that the last week or two for me has been very, very trying. It's been very, very energy draining. And there's been little things that have happened near the end of the last couple of weeks that just the slightest thing has set me off. And it's just like the straw that breaks the camel's back. And this happens to all of us, folks. So don't be too hard on yourself. And don't be too hard on other people if you see things getting them down. Because we all have our moments. We all have moments where we get disconnected from source. We have moments where we get disconnected from ourselves. Moments when we get disconnected from the people around us and we just start reading things the wrong way. It happens to all people. So don't be too harsh, folks. you've just got to learn to put these sort of things behind you and move forward in the best direction that is available to you. Sometimes it might seem like a radical change. It might seem like a radical direction to take. Me leaving the show may seem like a radical direction for me to take to some of the people out there. But I think things will just happen the way they're supposed to happen. I don't guarantee I'm leaving the show yet. I just feel like it's probably time for me to do so. I just can't really see the point of continuing doing what I do. I think there's probably better ways for me to apply my energy to this situation. I'll just have to think about it, meditate on it for a while, and figure out what decision I need to make. I admit a lot of it is due to the personal attacks. I'm just sick of it. I really am tired of hearing insults from people who've never met me and don't have any idea about me, and I don't know what their problem is. Maybe they're just jealous. Maybe they don't like my voice. I don't know what it is. But so many people seem to want to attack other researchers rather than spending their time and spending their energy on empowering the people around them and directing the attack at the criminals that are running the system, and just perpetuating division and perpetuating the fight and making sure that no one gets organised. It blows my mind. It just blows my mind that there are people out there that are that bloody stupid that that's what they want to do, and that's how they spend their lives, and that's how they spend their time. And it becomes disappointing. It does, because I think, well, these guys are part of consciousness as well. These people are part of the same conscious makeup as everybody else. Why are they working so hard to belittle and destroy everybody else and promote their own twisted version of reality to the world? Why are they doing this? Why do people want division so much that they direct all their energy at personal attacks to other people rather than facing the problems that we face and directing their energy there? It just blows my mind, folks. So admittedly, that has been getting to me. I've had 6 years of it after all, and it does get to you after a while, folks. If I had more of a support group on the ground here, maybe it wouldn't get to me so much, but I don't know. I've been on my own for quite a long time now, ladies and gentlemen, and sometimes it just gets hard to maintain the energy levels. It really does. Perhaps I need a partner or something. But anyway, folks, I think we're getting very close to the end of the show here. I know it's been a bit of an emotional roller coaster ride, this show. It's been quite a personal show. I don't usually get quite that personal on my shows, but it's been a very, very trying couple of weeks, folks. It really has. And sometimes I just want to share things. Sometimes I want to share my emotional journey with someone, and I guess you are the someone that I share it with, because I really don't have anyone else to share it with. So you get it, folks. You're the ones who cop it when I'm feeling less than par. So I do apologise for these feelings sometimes. I do apologise for my somewhat despondent state during the show today. I really have had a lot of emotional baggage that I've been carrying around for the last few days. It's a wonder. I mean, I don't know where it's coming from. Maybe Mercury's in retrograde or something. I don't know what's going on, but there's been weird things happening in my head for the last week or two. And so I do apologise for putting that burden on the listeners of the show, if that's what I've done. I didn't actually mean to do that. And so I'm sorry if I have, but I just wanted to share my thoughts with someone. And that someone that I share them with invariably turns out to be the listeners of the show. It's always the listeners, folks. The listeners always cop it when I'm in a strange mood. And so again, I humbly apologise for my somewhat despondent attitude on the show today. But anyway, folks, we are virtually at the end of the show here now. Thank you to anybody who has ever helped with the website, with the Crow House, who's ever made a contribution to the Crow House. Thank you to anybody who's ever made a contribution to the Full Circle Project. I will still be launching the project, folks. Even if I leave the radio show, I will still be doing the Full Circle Project, so you need have no fear of that. But that is it for me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm now completely out of time. It's been a pleasure having your company on the air again with me today, and I'll look forward to speaking to you again next week. Please do take very good care until then, and always remember the power that you have. You do have this power inside you, folks, if you choose to exercise it. I'll look forward to speaking to you next week in Lakesh.